In the previous video, I started building my dream galley, and it was beginning to look pretty good. But there was a bit too much footage for one video, so I left you on a cliffhanger with some structural damage I found on the other side. Saw this. That is a crack. That is cracked bulkhead. Now, I've had a few misadventures that didn't make it on camera, and well, I can think what that one probably was, where I misjudged the mochueka bar and got pounded a bit. You see the crack stops about there, and there's still quite a lot of boat under that. I guess I have to check all the others now. It's a bit windy out there today, so I'm going to try making improvements for this situation. Now my idea is just to see if I can pull these bits in and see if that makes a difference. That made the crack disappear. Now I just had to fill it. I released the tension a bit and squirted some epoxy in. Then I tightened it again. That was really just to seal the wood on the inside. For strength, I added a layer of double bias fiberglass to each side. If the space I'm trying to get the glass into is even slightly awkward, I think it's much easier to wet it out on the table and then lift it up and place it. So the technique I've figured out for the clear epoxy is first mix it really carefully, like mix it slowly and pour it really carefully just to minimize the bubbles. Then I pour it and spread it out really carefully too, using a silicone basting brush, not a paintbrush. A paintbrush picks up a lot of makes a lot of little bubbles, and this basting brush doesn't do that, and it's fairly easy to clean. Smooth that out as carefully as possible, and everything's on a flat surface here, so it like runs level. And then finally, I use a long neck lighter. You can use this to pop all the bubbles. You need a long neck one because otherwise you'll burn yourself. Painting this weird sticky stuff onto a surface and getting a really nice finish isn't as easy as it sounds. You basically have to be meticulous and do all the things right, and if you mess it up, well, you've got to do a lot of sanding to do. Speaking of sanding, I got fairly ruthless in changing the boat to be easier to sand. I even removed the rails from these shelves so I could sand the shelves properly. I used a heat gun to soften the paint, and then a tungsten carbide scraper to remove it. It worked well, but it still took a long time. But you know, all the work on the galley and that sort of stuff, every piece I put in, it just had so much thinking. Every piece that I glued in had to go in straight, and I had to have a plan for what was going to go in after it. So it was a nice change just to be scraping paint for hours and not really having to think at all. Just continue scraping. The galley side I had glued in this insulation, but then I discovered there was an adhesive remover solvent. Just assembled a template here. This is going to show you my whole template process. First step is screw together scrap to make the template. Then transfer the template to a piece of packing sheet. A pallet of plywood has one of these on the top and the bottom, and the timber yard will give it away for free. Then I cut that out and fit it again. It may require a little bit of adjustment. Okay, got everything mocked up. That's all screwed in and shimmed, so that I'm about to clamp to that, and everything will align perfectly with the doors. Then I use the packing sheet template as a pattern to cut it out with a router. That means when I do the actual cut, it comes out pretty much perfect and should fit as well as the packing sheet template did. So I'll just confirm that that's all okay. Yes, then let's glue it in. If you've watched my other build videos, you will have seen me piping in the glue with a freezer bag. Now we just stick the piece of wood in and apply clamps as necessary. So sometimes you have excess epoxy in a corner. This is also microfibers, so it's too hard to sand, and it's in a corner as well, so like look at that bit. How are you going to get that out? Well, I've found quite a good method. With a heat gun, you soften it, and the scraper, I usually wear a mask for it though. Oh, look at that. That's not going to be hard to glue something to. And it comes out in fairly big chunks, so not even as bad as dust. I kept on having ideas to make the interior more comfortable. One was realising that I could make the bed 10 centimetres wider by cutting away some bulkhead. Of course I needed to reinforce that area, so I glued in some wedges to bring the hull up to the stringers. Then actually cut a section out so that it's possible to lie leaning up against the wall, if you like. It was a big difference from being poked in the ribs by a bulkhead. Then I added a layer of unidirectional fiberglass under a layer of double bias. This continues to the next stringer underneath the bed. And of course the bed is glued down with epoxy and adds a lot of rigidity as well. Okay, that is solid as. I'm not too worried about that anymore. So yesterday I was scraping paint off in here and I realised I could actually cut this 4 centimetres shorter and then glass it around and it would be just as strong. You know, here's my head. It would make quite a big difference. Like even after living on this boat for several years, I still bang my head on this occasionally. You'll notice there's a wooden patch in the middle there. That's because there was originally bolts that went through the centre of these bulkheads and through the crossbeam. Those rotted in pretty much around all the bolt holes. So I changed the crossbeams to use blocks to stop them from sliding instead of bolts, which is how the later designs work anyway. It really feels a lot more spacious already. Just don't need to bend as much. With rounded corners it'll be even better, I think. So these beam troughs used to be a lot more structural than they are now. So they're going to be rounded and fiberglassed inside and out. Of course, they're already fiberglassed on the outside. For a job like this, my fiberglassing technique is to measure everything, cut it out and then wet it out on the flat on a piece of polythene. Arrange the fiberglass to peel ply in the polythene dry, wet it out, and then I can just pick it up like a big sticking plaster and push it up. It's a little bit tricky to get all the bubbles out, especially when it's overhead, but it works quite well. I'm just using double bias, so peel ply is essential. I decided I like this slightly raised beam trough so much that I've raised this one as well, making it quite a bit more comfortable. Just slouch slightly, I could sit here. Next I'm going to round this off. I wanted the galley to be perfect, but I still wasn't sure about some things, so I had been delaying gluing the bench down. But I'd made so much progress with everything else now that there was no more putting it off. So I decided to just do it. And also the little side bit that's just under a shelf. Now that the bench was in, I could do the other wall of the wet locker. I took a break from boat building for Christmas
and also during that time went rock climbing with my brother. We did an 8-pitch climb 120 metres high in Kawakawa Bay in Lake Taupo. Eventually we got to the top, and this is what it looked like from lake level.
So after a bit of a holiday in the car part of New Zealand, I'm back in the boat part of New Zealand, and I've got 3 weeks to finish building the galley and paint it.
Here's the last structural piece of wood to go onto the galley shelf to distract you from that join in the bench. And then there are a few bits of trim. I'm gluing on a nice piece of Quila around the edge of the bench, giving it a nice bevel that stuck out a little bit.
It's the last piece of wood to go in the galley.
And then a little rim around the back of the bench. I figured this would make it easier to wipe down, protect the paint. With all the wood in, it was time to seriously start getting ready to paint. Of course I have been doing a lot of sanding and scraping and all that, but it's not very interesting, so I didn't film much of it.
Okay, I finished all the sanding. At least I've stopped sanding, and I've masked everything. So we're all ready to go in the morning. It's 26 degrees right now, but it doesn't get to 20 degrees until like 10 AM. So I'm going to get up at like 7 and then just get started right away. Okay, farmer.
It was a huge relief to get the primer on, mostly because it means there's only a small amount of sanding after this.
We're getting there. A little bit of sanding, but yeah, I actually think I did a pretty good job on this one too. Pretty smooth texture, a few bits. I mean, like, now I'm just like primer, and I know I can, I'm not like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to sand it. I'm like, oh yeah, I can just sand this. It doesn't need to be completely perfect because I'll just sand it.
It seems I didn't actually get any footage of putting the top coat on, but here's how it turns out.
Painted this yesterday. It's so white. It's like that scene in the movies where you're like, oh, am I dead? Am I in heaven?
It wasn't completely perfect yet, I hadn't finished, but I'd done everything that I really needed to be in the yard to do. Also, I really wanted to go sailing this summer, and anyway, the date I had booked to go back in was here.
It's so stinking hot. Everything is so piled up higgledy-piggledy. I've been up since like packing up the boat since 7 in the morning. Not quite finished, but the boat's moving.
Kevin, who runs the yard, told me that it was really nice to see someone who was completely organised and ready to go. Normally it's just complete chaos.
Yeah, we're floating. So I got rid of like 200 kilograms worth of junk. So when I came out, the water line was right on the blue bit. This lens will that now like a hiatus. Whoa. So we were in the yard for like 6 months. another week getting the boat packed and now actually moving. It's a relief. I realised while editing that I needed to show you what the galley actually looks like when everything is set up. So here it is. The one problem currently is I was putting the boat back together and I couldn't find the sink. Like the sink just disappeared. Went for a walk or something. So I need to find another sink that has the same classic shape. It's 255 mils by 355. And it needs to be this shape with like whether it's like rounded all the way around, the flats are a little bit rounded and then corners and then everything's sort of rounded. It's called a squircle. There's one on the Raven, but I would rather not rebuild that galley too, so I'm trying to find the same kind of sink. If you can help, let me know. Send me an email. And here's the chart table. It's not completely finished, like I haven't got around to building doors for that bit yet, but you know, if you want everything to be perfect, those people don't go sailing very often, and I wanted to go sailing. But that's going to be in the next video. So thanks for watching everyone. Please post a comment, that's the best way to encourage me to make more videos. And the next one's going to be really exciting. But that's a surprise.